Om Shri Sai Ram. Om Shri Sai Ram. Our next unit that comes up, the next session that we are going forward with, is the teacher's toolkit. So the intro, you know what teacher's toolkit is all about. So let me introduce the resource person for this session. Akhila Indurti started out as a Balvika student, and she was a Balvika's guru. In fact, we were Balvika's gurus. She was in Tamil, Kathukutti, just a child who has come out of Balvikas and she became a guru. And I was senior guru. Okay, that is the level. She was a broadcaster. She worked as a broadcaster in All India Radio. In Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, UNICEF program, she was a resource person. She was resource person for Government of Karnataka's Foundation Literacy Program. And at present, she is the adjunct professor in Presidency University. So she keeps using these tools, and those tools she brings here. Being in Satya Sai Vidya Vahini, we know Akhila as either as a value content person when we started out, when the Vidya Vahini program started out. And later on, she's been involved with the Mission English program of Satya Sai Vidya Vahini. So she would rather be known for that than any other thing that comes her way. But for us, it makes a huge difference when we say that she is a resource person with a background in which where she acquires a lot of learning and inputs which she brings to us. That can make our content even more valuable. It is valuable, can even add further to the value. So over to you. She will be taking you through a session, and we'll follow it up in the module that we will be creating, adding the toolkit tools from this kit. Okay, welcome to you, Akhila.
Om Shri Sai Ram, my most loving pranams at the lotus feet of my beloved master. Thank you so much, my dear Suhasniti. As the one beautiful thing of growing up in the organization is you can be what you are. That's why Swami said, be Akhila, perhaps. It can be overlooked with a lot of love and affection. And that's how the organization and Satya Sai Vidya Vahini has been treating me. And I come before you with all humility. And I feel so happy when I look at this entire crowd, because as resource persons with various organizations, we've been training groups of professionals, but nowhere can we see this kind of a dedication and commitment. Here people come because they want to learn and they want to do. And if you've been with Vidya Vahini right from the beginning to the time that just now Sister Suhasini showed us all those wonderful, see what my group has done, kind of, where all of you came and presented. It's indeed an extremely proud moment. And I'm sure Swami must be feeling very, very happy, because nowhere can you find this kind of a motley group, I must say, which has got a commitment to learn, which has got an interest to learn, much more than those who are paid to learn and deliver. And here we say, no, if we don't do the hands-on now, never mind, we'll keep an evening session. Never mind, we'll keep a night session. Only thing we can't do an overnight session because ashram rules, force us to close down, shut down by 9 o'clock. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I'm sure we wouldn't mind staying on and getting the maximum benefit out of this. So, dear sisters and brothers, where can we find this kind of a group? So, a huge round of applause for each one of you. And waiting for the end. And see, I'm having a very hard battle to fight. I'm fighting against tea and snacks. So I'll have to prep you up first to listen to what I'm going to tell. And along with that pat on the back, a moment to reflect and give a heartfelt gratitude to our beloved Lord. What can he not do? Right? When people come to Vidyavahini, they keep telling us, we don't know anything about education. We are not teachers. We don't mind, okay? We'll take everybody because we know whether it is as a PYF mentor or a content creator or a trainer, we know what magic can be woven on them. You're available? Come. You're available? Come. That's our only, we do only that. And he does the rest. So we're all the time, kind of daring him. Here we are giving us, we've all come, so do what you want to do with us. And he never fails us. So a moment of heartfelt gratitude and a prayer to him that he would continue to use us, continue to make us come like this year after year, to meet at his lotus feet and do the self-audit that so beautifully was done some time back. Where do we stand? And that offering of all the wonderful assets, saying that yes, yes, yes. And Swami sent a beautiful resource to us, Dr. Dakshayani, who told us whether we are on the right way or where we need more tinkering, where we need a little more push, a thrust. So he does everything, you see, there's nothing that he doesn't do. So with that preamble, let me just move into the teacher toolkit. All of us have seen skilled craftsmen, whether they are a carpenter, a plumber, whoever it is, they carry a toolkit, isn't it, in their hands. What does a teacher do? A teacher empowers students with a whole lot of skills. So which means she or he must be having a toolkit that's something like a magic box. It must have everything which can enable the teacher to give this kind of tools to these kind of skills to the students. And as we've seen with all the learning outcomes, how it is becoming more learner-centric. It's no longer what the teacher knows. It's what the children want, what the learners want. So if you have to match with that kind of an expectation, and there is no one size fits all, that also we have seen. We can't say that I have done this one thing, so this is what is there. Come on, all of you consume what I'm giving. That doesn't work. We've seen that children are of different levels, they are of different interests. They want so many different things. Some of us want coffee, some of us want tea, some of us want hot water. Some of us say maybe a cool drink would also be okay. So much variety we need. So what about children in the class? They would also want different kinds of things. So we need to provide them with what they want. So which means what the teacher learns as part of her education, say B.Ed or D.Ed, is not going to be sufficient. So teachers, skills first have to keep on getting sharpened periodically. So that is what this teacher toolkit would aim to do. This presentation, I would begin at 3:30 now. I'll try to complete it in half an hour. The introduction to the teacher toolkit. What exactly do we mean by a toolkit? What are the various tools? Most of you I just saw those enriched assets, the enriched ones that were shown. Such a proud moment. We may not even know that we are using the tools, but we've already started using. Whether it is the jigsaw method or whether it is the think, pair, share, those are all the common ones which are now being used. So leaving those out, what are the other tools that we can use? And not at random. We need to use these tools at a particular stage. What are those? And finally, we'll take question and answers. It will also be followed by a hands-on session, which I'm told we will park for the later time, perhaps later this evening. So as the introduction, what do these set of tools do? They are supposed to improve the classroom practice. See, you can't expect the teacher to go like before on a lecture mode. Nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to listen to the teacher talking. Nobody wants to take down notes. Remember, these are all times where they go on a WhatsApp. They do this. Have you seen children do it? My God, how do they do it? We can never catch up with them. The speed with which they twirl and they swirl their hands and then the words keep forming. It's that fast. So you are going to dictate notes to such children? I mean, we are living in a stone age. So we need to improve our own classroom practices, learn something that will make a difference. Like a magician, every time you have to remove a rabbit from the hat. Every teacher has to do it. So it should be it's a constant race. Just like how it's the outside world, no? If you have a Zomato, you have a whatever, yeah, Swiggy. So that is not there, then something else comes. So like this, there's competition. So similarly, even within the classroom, the teachers have to keep learning something to make a difference. And most important is we are trying to build skills so that they are ready. So everything that we do should lead to a question: if I'm going to speak, what is it that the child can do after listening to me? If you're all listening to this, what is it that you're going to do at the end of it? If you're just going to listen and say, then that is satsang, because that is mananam and putting it into practice, all that. But here it is a practical session where you will have to go out with a definite. Suhasini sister told us this morning, at the end of the third day, all of us will be up and running to create something. So there is a definite goal right in front of us. So we need to develop those skills so that we can translate them into the lessons that we bring. And most importantly, how do you maximize the opportunities in the classroom for children to learn? They have to go out with a very happy feeling, saying that, yes, there is something that I learned today. That's very, very nice. What is it that I learned? That should be the conversation among the students. Normally, they don't do that. They only talk about various other things. So we'll have to work that hard. And we have to also activate the students' participation in the class, because we don't want to make it as a monologue. We want them to be active learners. So there's no longer that pin drop silence is banished now from classrooms. Nobody says pin drop. If it's a pin drop silence, it's a dead class. And we are failed teachers. So we have to maximize students' participation in the class. At the same time, teachers, as Dakshani sister was telling us, the most difficult profession, because they have 100 things to do. On top of that, if Vidyavani comes and tells them, do this and do that, naturally, when they look at you, I'm very worried. Many people look at me and they just don't come this side. Maybe they are scared. I'll catch them and ask them, would you become a PYF mentor? So we don't want that to happen. We don't want teachers to think that we are coming there to give them an additional burden. They must think that here is Vidyavani content that's going to make my life really very, very easy. So how do they manage their time and resources? And they have to also promote a very, very healthy, positive climate in the classroom. The classroom climate should be so nice, warm, enjoyable, making it interesting for the teachers and for the students. And it should also help students take responsibility for their own learning, not keep sending slips to the parents saying that ask your child to do this, then once again, we are not good as teachers. So how do we as content creators empower the teachers to do all these things? Isn't that our goal as content creators and trainers? We are going to empower these teachers to do all these things. So these set of tools are supposed to be able to help the teachers do these. And these are not random. You can't just put a tool, you can't just give what will we do with supposing there's some problem with the electrical fitting in your house. The electrician says, okay, just take my kit and look at it. I will come later. What will we do? We'll take everything. We won't know what to do with what. No, we need to know that. For that, we need to have that skill. So it's not like a random set of skills we give and say, here are 12 tools. Please use it at random. No, that's not the way it's done. So we need to organize it properly. How do we organize? There are a few tools with which you can introduce the subject and engage the class. So that would be a set of tools. And then after you engage, you go a little more into exploring in depth what the concept actually is asking the children to learn. What is it that by learning this concept, the children will be able to do? So for that, you need to explore a little more. So how do we do that? A few more tools. And then finally, it's not a random selection of tools. You need to have folders. See, very often what happens in our enthusiasm, and this I'm sure I'm not alone, I hope, all of us in Vidyavani, we find some material, we'll download, we'll put it on our desktop. When you look at our desktops, I remember one lovely friend, sister in Vidyavani always used to look at my desktop and say, what is this? Is this a desktop or your recycle bin is here? And then I used to think, yes, if it's like this, where will you find out what is there? So teachers also, they can't just go and teach something. They need to have it in neat folders, organize it. Where? In their heads. Similarly, the children also should go out fully organized in their heads as to what they learned. What was the introduction? What did the body of that entire concept teach us? What is it that we are supposed to learn? What is it that we are supposed to do? What is it that is going to be assessed? So for that, you need that organizing and reflecting. That's so important for the child to understand. So organize and reflect is another set of tools. Now, a few of these you've already done, so I will not bother about it, but I'm just putting them under those buckets. For the introduce and engage, you have the entry ticket, which most of you, I think, have used already in your concepts or in your lesson plans, in your assets. And then there is something called a do now, which can't be done later. It is a do now. You know, some WhatsApp messages you need to forward immediately, whether you read it or not. It's a do now. Yeah, you won't even know what it is. So by the time you get it, you would have pressed forward. So much so the person who sent would tell you, "Arey, it was only for you, yeah. I didn't want you to forward." Oh, is it? I always forward interesting things. So I thought this too. It came from you, I forwarded. Like that. That's a do now. So there is something like a do now in the classroom which has to be done. The immediacy is lost if the learners don't do it at that particular moment. And then there's a wonderful put on a thinking cap where you are supposed to have the critical thinking skills will be improved upon, or you're trying to build on the critical thinking skills by putting on your thinking cap. So this is for introduce and engage. And then we move a little further, and that's engage and explore. You have the think, pair, share, which you've already done. And then you have the turn and talk. Just a 1 minute activity where children just turn and talk. And then immediately, this is like when we want to say something, the teacher says, okay, I give you 1 minute, just turn and talk what it is this concept says. So everybody gets a chance to talk, and she just picks students from random and says, what is it that you have learned? So that's a turn and talk. It's not talking session, but it is an organized talking session that's given as part of the engage and explore. Then under the organize and reflect, we have something called a parking lot. We have a partner up. Then we have a see, think, wonder, which I think you have already used. Then we have concept maps. We have gallery walk. Then we have all those graphic organizers, different kinds of graphic organizers, which includes the KWL. And then you have an exit ticket. But the ones that we would be, for want of time, we would only be looking at a couple of them. We'll be looking at the 3, 2, 1. And I used to think, but now I know. So how do we use this particular tool in whatever we are doing? So this is the general lay from which I will be choosing just a few to tell you. So the first one is this is called the 3, 2, 1 technique. This provides a structure. What is it exactly? See, there are so many things that we learn, but I think most of us, when we studied, we always used to follow this. Just tell me 5 points from this. It's enough to go and pass my exam. I don't want the fluff. I just want those 5 points. Many questions which we may not be able to, which we could not have studied in depth. Just before the exam, we would say just 5 points or 10 points, and we would do kind of peer learning. Somebody reads one question and tells you 5 points, which you will remember and just go regurgitate in the exam and come back. So rather than do something like that, what we do here is a structured, a 3-2-1 strategy where you try to understand. It provides a structure for what the students have understood. So they record their own comprehension and they summarize the entire lesson in 3 points. And here is where you as a teacher is able to find out this tool. Why is it as a content creator you use? Because the teacher will be able to find out how much the students have learned from what you told them. By making them tell just 3 points which they have understood, whether they have understood it correctly or not, or whether there is still any gap that has to be filled in. So this gives clarity to the teacher whether there is something more that has to be done. So therefore, this technique will help the teacher to identify these gaps. And when do you do this? You can do it at any point as a check for understanding, because this is organizing and reflecting.
Assessment of learning.
Right, exactly. Assessment of learning. You're going to assess what they have learned. Correct. So at any point, you can just stop and say, now tell me 3 points that you have learned. 3, 2, 1. Let's just do a 3, 2, 1. 3 things that you already know. 2 things that you still want to know. No, there are 2 things which you would still want more clarity, and the 1 thing that you actually want to know further. So this is what you can do. And then you can also do it as a part of a class discussion and also as a closing activity, so that you can review at the end of a lesson. You can do this so that you know exactly what the child has, what the learners have understood as after listening to the entire lesson. So why do we do this? Because it would also prompt a class discussion, and it would also help the teacher. See, most of the time, if there is a unit which is quite large, which spills over to another period, it would be very difficult for the teacher. Usually what we do, like that serials that we have, there will be a recap session. Rather than make the teachers do this recap themselves, she can easily ask them to do this 3, 2, 1. And then go on to the same, continue the lesson from where she has stopped. So this is an effective way to prompt a class discussion or review material. And it's also, yes, it's an easy way to check understanding. Then how do we do it? After a lesson or a concept is taught, ask them to list the following details in their notebooks. They all have their they take notes in their notebook. So ask them to find out 3 things that they have learned from this lesson so far. What is it? Just 3 things. Now they're very happy. It's only 3, no? The number is very small. If you say, give me 10 features of the mountains or the landmass and all that, 10 features is too much. Then you just say 3, that seems like a child's play. So each one puts 3, 3, 3, 3, then the entire class gets a complete understanding. So it's an easy way of breaking it down. Then 2 questions which they still have. They're still not understood. 2 things. So for that, what they should do, they should have gone through it. No? So it's a very interesting way. See, I don't know how I've taught. So can you tell me 2 things which you still want to know? This is like trapping the teacher. So let me go through. So that's another technique of making the learner take responsibility. And one aspect of the class which they found interesting. The last one. What is it in this whole class that you found interesting? Was there anything at all that you found interesting? Children are very happy to give a feedback. This is like a feedback. So whatever it is, one thing is we must tell the teachers to take everything in a very positive light. You know, sometimes children may be naughty. You have to give that footnote also. The one thing that I enjoyed was when you kept saying, I mean. Children could do that. Children could do that. And a teacher cannot say, take offense at that. She just has to say, yes, that's a terrible, mannerism, which I'm trying to get over. And I hope you will not pick up any mannerism like that. I didn't have a teacher who could correct me. Make that as a virtue. So that is also a tool which a skill which the teacher has to understand and have that quick thinking to tell the class. So based on this, what does the teacher do? She can evaluate the students' responses and guide the teaching decisions, how to go forward. Areas in the curriculum which they have not understood. So that's about that. And there is an example that's given. And I've also given this presentation can be shared with each one of you because there is a YouTube link. Now, the wonderful thing is the information explosion. If we only know where to look for, the resources are all there. So this, there are many small videos, but this is something that is much easy for us to learn and do it in our own classes. For that, for you to create the content, you can just watch this video. So that gives you just 3 minutes, nothing more. An example could be like this: 3 things which you have discovered about polar. If the lesson is about polar bears, you give this because that's what the teacher has already taught them. And the 2 interesting things which they found, very interesting. And that's why we give those interesting asides. Now see how you can weave in our assets into this kind of a content. Nothing should be standing separately. It's not like the 7 assets stand separately, the toolkit, the tools are standing separately. We need to weave them. So the interesting things can be from the interesting aside or even the day-to-day relevance, we can put it there. And one question that you still have, which is not, children can come with out-of-the-box questions. They could say something that is not there, which will strike them, which we don't know. What is the teacher supposed to do if she doesn't know the answer? And 9 to 10 cases, the teacher will not know the answer because children can come up with any kind of question. So what do you think the teacher should do? Wonderful. Exactly. Exactly. The old school of thought would be shut up, that's not necessary, that's out of question. Don't ask. Nobody will ask you that. But today, as teachers, I don't know the answer, I'll come back tomorrow. And that's the honest, and children will really appreciate that. And an even better way of doing it is co-creating it, make them partners in crime. So tell them, I don't know, you also don't know. Let's both look at Google and come tomorrow. They'll be very happy because teacher doesn't know, you see. So then they get a pat the next day. They say, yeah, see, we also try to help. So you make the children participate in the class. Definitely by using all these, what happens, children would also try to, they've gauged the teacher. They know the teacher is honest. She knows what she knows. She doesn't know what she doesn't know. She makes no bones about it. So they're learning together. It's a wonderful thing to learn together. So that's the way we tackle this question. And then there's another tool, which is, this is, I used to think before, but now I know. What I used to think before and now I know. I used to think this before, but now I know. For example, most of us, when it comes to many of the natural phenomena, especially in the younger classes, 3rd, 4th, 5th, they would have heard, they would have said, volcanoes are caused because of the wrath of God. Somebody would have told them that. A tsunami is caused because, somebody cursed some. They would have heard of all these myths. Children like to say all those things in the class. And if it's a thunder, they'll say it's Thor who sent us. They would have seen a lot of these Game of Thrones and stuff like that. They'll say Thor has sent his, his weapon. So therefore it's a thunderbolt and that's why thunder came. So now you use that knowledge and you have taught them the concept, how these things occur. So then you make them say using that. Then they would say, I used to think that volcanoes were caused due to the wrath of God, but now I know that it is a scientific phenomenon because of whatever, the molten lava coming, what blah, blah, blah that is there. So this way, what happens, children are able to connect their previous knowledge and then use that in the class to dispel a wrong notion and come out with a right answer. So that's another interesting tool that children can use, which you will have to empower the teachers to use as part of the content. So what is this exactly? It helps students explore how and why that thinking has changed. It captures the development of mindsets over time, recording differing perceptions of the same idea after an interval of time. I could perhaps say, when I started studying, I used to think there are 9 planets, but now I know there are only 8. But now I started thinking there are only 8 planets, but now they say there is definitely another 9th planet. So it's actually gone twice over. I used to think, but now I know. Even that is changed over a period of time. So many things keep evolving. So this kind of gives a sense of that periodicity in a child's, this kind of a thing can happen. Learning is constant. It's not like somebody said, this is it, and therefore it's cast in stone. Nothing is cast in stone in today's world. Everything can change. One day they'll say this is good. Next day they'll say this is not good. Coffee is very good. All of you have coffee. And then you will have people go and drink mugs and mugs of coffee. Then somebody says, no, caffeine is very bad. Stay off. All right. And somebody says, have little coffee, little this. So see how we all, WhatsApp University is helping us do all this, isn't it? So that's it. I used to think, but now I know. So when do we use this? Whenever students' initial thoughts, opinions, beliefs are likely to have changed. So you can use this very, very carefully whenever the lesson warrants it. So as content creators, you should know where you can use this. After reading new information or watching a film, maybe a National Geographic, or listening to a speaker, a very erudite speaker, experiencing something really new, I always used to think this is something very frightening, but I went there and now I know it's quite an enjoyable experience. So that's born out of your own experience. After having a class discussion and also at the end of a unit of study. That's why it is organized and reflection. There's an amount of reflection that's happening. And why do we use it? Because it consolidates new learning and it identifies new understandings, opinions, and beliefs. And here is where the child's reasoning ability gets, he's trying to reason.
You can use this at the end of an essay.
Many. The possibilities are endless. That's why it's a tool. You can do anything with a tool. It's like an artist. He just has a brush and a canvas and a paint. It's his imagination. You can do anything. I may just go and scribble. Somebody else can do a beautiful portrait. So it just depends on the user. So you're just giving the tool and creating that skill in the teacher to use that tool. So it develops the reasoning abilities, metacognitive skills, and also identification of cause and effect relationships. What happens, because of which, what is happening. Because of this, something has happened. I used to think, but now I know. That was a cause. What is a cause? Teacher teaching in the class. Because of this, I now came to understand this is new learning for me. So for more on this, here's a YouTube link. And how do we do this? It's to help the students reflect on their thinking and how ideas have changed. And as I told you, this is how we do. When we began the study of whatever the topic is, you all had some initial ideas about it and what it was all about. In just a few sentences, I want you to write what it is that you used to think about, say mountains or rains or whatever you want to, natural resources. Take a minute to sit back and think and write down your response. But make sure that it starts with, I used to think. That's the stem. Now I want you to think about how your ideas about the same topic have changed as a result of what we've been studying all along. So in just a few sentences, now you write what you think about it. But start your sentence with, but now I know. So this is called shifts in thinking. So it's quite all right. Then children also understand adaptability is a great skill. See, very often we just stick on to our peeves, our beliefs. Our biases. We don't want to let go because we have been conditioned. You can't do this. You can't go pray to God without taking bath. Why? Nobody asked. Don't ask. That's how my mother taught me. So my mother would say her mother taught. And my mother went a little, you can pray anytime you want. No need to pray also. Huh? But you do, no? You want to do. That's how we tell our children. If they want, they can. Otherwise, it's okay, free. Then they would do it. You tell them, do it. They won't do it. So this shift in thinking is like, an adaptable. You are trying to teach the children it's quite all right to be adaptable. Quite all right to change your beliefs as, values cannot change, but beliefs can definitely, value systems cannot change, but beliefs can definitely change. There are many things which can't be done in the previous generations are now it's past because you can't do things that they did then. At that particular time, that seemed to be what was necessary. So it's quite all right moving forward to have these shifts in thinking. So this is how you try to train the children. And initially you can pick them up at random and ask them to do it. After that, you can just divide them into groups and get them to do it as a group activity once they get accustomed to the idea. And yeah, this now from here on, we move on to the use of graphic organizers. There are many charts that we can use. Just a couple of them that I would show here. And after that, I will also show what are the different kinds of charts that you can use. So that's a tool that I'm leaving with all of you. As content creators, you can use that framework to pull it out according to your need. So the know what you want to know, what you know already, what you want to know, and what you have learned is a 3-step process, which actually activates the background knowledge and also gives an immediate purpose to the learning. Why are we all learning all this ultimately? Why are we learning? What is it that we want to build? What is we've been hearing about the word competency. What is it that we want to build? Yeah, so what are the skills that you want to build? Can anyone use that? Give it out as a outcome for this entire session. If you start thinking that way, then it would be easy for you to remember. I don't know how many of you attended the session last year on understanding by design. How we said if you start with your assessments, it's easy for you to create your content later. The sister is really struggling. You want hot water or something? I know this cough is, it's such an adamant cough. It comes, it never goes. All of us go through it. So yes, what was I lost my train of thought. Yes, we said if you start by building your assessments first, then what happens is it's easy for you to map the content to match the assessment rather than the other way around, because the assessments are built on testing the competencies and whether the outcome attainment has happened. So when that is there, what will happen? Your content that you create will definitely be mapped to it. And to map that, you can use these tools. So the ultimate aim is only for you, whether it is assessment, summative, formative, whatever name you call it. You want to build those competencies in the students. So that is something we should never lose track of. Keep that in mind and see if you want to know what it is that the child already knows. You don't want to spoon feed everything right from the word go. You can find out what is it that you know about this topic, trigonometry, or what. Have you seen this if you're doing triangles? Have you seen this somewhere like this? Any building have you seen which is out of shape? So you're triggering some background knowledge. So what is it that you know? What is it that the children want to know about it? You can ask them, what is it that you want to know? Is it something you want to know? Then they start thinking, what is it that I want to know? So when do you use it? To open and close any unit and help students access background knowledge. Starting, they will only fill the first 2 columns. The last column will be filled after you complete the unit, because that tells them, makes them understand what they have learned and put it down. So these are organizers which help students organize the information before, during, and after a unit. And it's used to engage children in a new topic, activate prior knowledge, share the unit objectives, and you can monitor students' learning by looking at the entire chart. There is also printable charts you can download, or you can also create it by just making 3 columns. Yes, but you can give them the topics which can link to this initially, because they may not know where to put it. Yeah, give them a couple of examples and then they're good to go. See, once that skill becomes a daily habit for them, then they can do it themselves. You don't have to handhold every time. But all these may be very new to many teachers. So you need to first create a sample and train them on using it. That's why the content and the training has to go hand in hand. Otherwise, you will be creating something, the training will not know what it is that you have created. At every stage, this collaboration is very, very important. They are the ones who are going to, it's like the production and the marketing in an industry. The marketing team should know all that the company is manufacturing. Otherwise, how will they go and market? Similar is this, no, training and content. So what is it that they know? What do you know about the topic? So here are a list of um, uh, points that are given. Sometimes children also have a lot of misconceptions about concepts. So let them write. Don't hold them against, because it's fine. They don't know, that's why they want to learn. Then what is it that they want to know? Usually they want to know is, you can use these 6 questions as prompts: who, what, where, when, why, and how. And then you can suggest student responses and questions to be used to direct this course of study. And then finally you come to what is it that they've learned. And as students record what they have learned, it's important for the teacher to review each one of this. Only then she will know whether all of them have understood what you taught. Otherwise, you would have taught something, maybe it's all esoteric for the children, abstract, and they would have understood something. And that's what happens now in question papers and answer papers. They won't know anything at the end of writing, because they also get it. Ask somebody, did you understand this, please? Arey yaar, I just got the whole thing by heart. By the time the exam was over, I forgot about it. That's the standard answer. When you do this exercise, that danger would not be there. So this is how this has to be done. Another chart that you use is called the T chart, the X and the Y charts. So the T chart is very simple. Anybody can use. We were discussing, I think, I don't know when, you said the merits and demerits of something, advantages and disadvantages, climate and weather. Somebody said that, no, during the course of the presentation. Social studies, yes, yes, yes. So you can very comfortably use a T chart for that. Can I use this board, please? It's a very beautiful way to organize children's learning by just doing this. In this lens where there are 2 aspects to the learning, whether it is pros and cons, merits and demerits, advantages and disadvantages, weather and climate. You know, when you're comparing 2 things, you can make use of the T chart as part of your content, so that children are able to organize their thoughts and just put it 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 points this side, 5 points that side. How do you translate it into a practical, the skill of using a T chart? I want to go on a trip, maybe to Kodaikanal, or I want to go to Shimla. So which would you choose? A T chart. What are the merits of going to Kodaikanal? What are the merits of going to Shimla? What is not working if I go to Kodaikanal? So you list down everything. We keep doing this all the time. Actually, the T chart is something is in our head. Somebody is coming home tomorrow. What do I cook? Bangan bhatta or aloo sabji? Bangan bhatta, go and buy, or have to order. Supposing it's not good, last minute, no, disaster. Potatoes already there. So I list down both in my head, the pros and the cons. And finally, I vote for what works for me. Right? So the T chart is a skill that we all do it, without knowing that we are using the T chart. Correct? Pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. So that's the entire thing about the T chart. And here are some examples. A pet. So children normally ask for pets in that's a very constant request, from children to their parents. So ask them to list down the pros and cons. You want a dog, you have to walk the dog every morning. Are you ready? Pros and cons. Then they'll only say, no, not now. We'll see after the exams. So get them to do it. If you tell no, it's not going to work. It's always top down. That doesn't work. So this is how you do a T chart, where there are 2 things, examples given. And now X chart is a little difficult one, and I don't think the X chart is something that you could use frequently, because you need to know those quadrants. In order to put it, in all the 4 things, you must know. Supposing there is the lesson on natural resources. So if you want to use the X chart, what would you do? You can say, what are the natural resources? Then what are the features of features? First name them, then the features, then the challenges, or if it's just one natural resource, say water. So you say, what are the properties of water? What are the water bodies? What are the challenges that water is facing now? Why is there a drought? Why is there a flood? So challenges, then mitigation. How do you overcome it? So when the topic lends like this to 4 different quadrants, you can use the X chart. But for this, you have to be very clear in your head. Otherwise, the teachers would get confused. So as content creators, you need to first get those 4 topics, the buckets clear in your head. Only then you would be able to do the X chart. So that here is one example on innovation. You need to get the dimensions, the 4 dimensions. What is the environment? What's the collaboration? This is little higher. Yeah.
When any table has 4 columns, it can be changed.
When you have a 4, but do it like this, because then it's easy for you to put it, and rather than have it as 4 different columns, you put it like an X in 4 quadrants. 4 quadrants, yeah. The dimensions have to be clear. But use it with care, because the dimensions have to be, they should not overlap. It should be very clear. If it's not clear, then it becomes very difficult. So that's the X chart. Dimension is, see, as I told you, supposing I take water. The 4 dimensions I'll give you are, what are the water bodies? Maybe where all can you find water? Then what are the properties of water? What are the challenges that water faces? Then how do I overcome it? That's mitigation.
There are 4 aspects of a particular.
So these are the
topic
4.
can be covered.
So unless you are clear in your mind that you can divide it into 4, so those dimensions have to be very clear so that you can fill those quadrants. So that's about the X chart. Y is fairly a simpler one, which you normally says, what does it look like? What for lower classes, you can use a Y chart. What does it look? It's mostly to do with sights. This the senses, mostly to do with the senses, the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, the sense of touch, and you just put them into 3 different. Here the dimensions are only 3. So where it lends itself to 3 things, you use the Y chart. Y chart is comparatively a simpler form.
I was saying, if it is 120 degrees, it's a white chart.
She talks in the language of math. Yeah, I can see. That's why I didn't look this side at all. I moved away.
But you are looking here this side.
I'm looking that side. Math, is it? I wish I had known.
This is primary,
For science, for white chart, just an example, like you could take pollution. The types of pollution causes consequences.
Right.
Suppose you add one more dimension definition. Then you
Make it
can put
X.
in an
X. Same thing. Yes, right. The same thing can be done as an X chart.
one clarification here. See, here it says using
Senses. So the pollution also has to have, Dr. Chitra, the Y chart usually uses the senses. So if you say pollution, let's say they take Delhi. Let's just define Delhi during the fog or during the winter. How do you feel? What do you see? What do you hear? Things like that. So you need to use the senses to define the Y chart. That's the only difference. That's what they say, but then if you ask me personally, you could even use it for anything where you have a 3 quadrant and you want to do it without much. But why they put the senses is it's easy for us to remember. When you associate it with a sense, it's easy for children to remember. So whatever lends itself to that, you can use.
Sure, thank you.
For the rest of it, I'll show you some more charts which you can use. Thank God. Huh? Yeah, this is something that could be of interest to the content creators. This is something that you can use. These are the different kinds of graphic organizers.
Yeah, this we have in our content.
You have in your content. Yes. So you can make use of whichever is appropriate for different kinds of charts. the only few charts that we touched upon today is KWL and the X and the Y and the T. And finally, this is something that is, we would do a hands-on, but we need to wait for a good time for that. It's called the 6 thinking hats. And why do we do that? I would explain this just before doing the activity. Otherwise, once again, the thread would be lost. So I would stop with this at this point. And if there are any questions, I would like to take them to the best possible extent that I can clarify. It's a very simple thing, but all these things are what make how our content has been getting enriched year after year by using many of the techniques, the tools, and you can see the end result. So this is just one more endeavor in that direction. Yeah.
So, I'll be loud enough.
Thank you, Akila ma'am. Like whatever you have been telling is going to help the content creation. Come up with more benefits.
Enrich.
Yeah. One idea occurred to me. I think it is really from far left of the field, as you can imagine this idea. The thing is, when say my daughter is given an assignment, which is like quite complicated or too simple that it has to be complicated. My daughter herself uses ChatGPT. So our content creators, whatever curveball you throw at them, which concept you want them to express in a totally unknown way than before, if they can know how to give the proper prompt in the ChatGPT, there is nothing like it. It's like the genie is out of the bottle. You can ask anything. So there is a separate field itself emerging called as prompt engineering. They teach you how you need to give the exact prompt to get the exact results. So why don't we think of like a flash course to the content team on using ChatGPT to get all of this information and more? Thank you.
We are getting into a realm that would make us redundant.
One question.
I agree. I completely agree. But then the skill to even differentiate between the right and the wrong should be.
And they see sometimes when you actually ask fact-based question or a research kind of a question, the answers that come is absolutely wrong. You need to be very careful. Your content, you can put it in ChatGPT, ask it to reorganize. You are given a content and you say, convert this into a story-based lesson plan. Or you are given a content and say, Bloom's level
Increase.
application and analysis, you create a question, it will give you the right one. But if you ask something without giving your original content, it may not be relevant to what you are doing. So you have to be very, very careful.
It's like, it's not that, it's a hit and miss.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could come out with very good content. Sometimes you could come out with a content which you think is very good, but which may be inappropriate. So how will you know?
No, but what ma'am told just now, how we can jump through all these pitfalls, why don't we have it as a course for our content creators? What ma'am explained just now.
No, but the problem is, no, see, are we really, have we reached that level where, because prompt writing is an academic exercise which is now being introduced into academic papers.
Let's not go to that level.
But then you will be touching, no? See, when you start, how much is too much?
See, when we think 21st century skills for students, shouldn't content writers and teachers also be brought to the 21st century level? Why are we still thinking that we have to
Even right now.
They will stop listening. Students will not see. Whenever we are preparing a training program, we have to get competent persons to give the input, avoid all the pitfalls and filter and get a proper training program. I think it is high time content creators need to be.
We'll do it. We'll eventually get there because
some experts.
not immediately, but we will first, let's just empower ourselves with what is there. We are as it is racing. And the more it's like one mirage, that more we try to catch something that is receding, going farther and farther away. So let's just at least empower ourselves to what we need for the moment. And then, see, there'll also be such a rush of information that to sieve through it would become another challenge. Are we really ready for that? So we need to answer so many things and use it. It's a lovely tool. As I always keep thinking, Chat GPT is a very good servant, but a bad master. If you allow it to do something, you may land up in trouble. But you can use, like what Madam said correctly, you can give, for that you can do your own create. See, I can do a T chart and I can say, do you think can you polish my T chart? It might polish what you've written. But if I give some topic and say, do a T chart on this, how will I know whether it's giving me the right one or not? It may be the level may be too high.
But we should take it to the content creators, right? Like you give a technique, polish it in chat, just introduce to them.
We will.
That actually is
We will.
All this is just the thing. Finally, the person, the teacher who is going to deliver it.
Yes.
So it is not anybody we are giving a white chart and she's going to present it. It is going to come from the students. So there's a lot of teacher competency that gets built in. So there is a lot of human element that goes into actually getting it happening.
No, what I was thinking was the man hours that every content creator puts in, it's like the same analogy, work smart versus work hard. So it could, probably we could begin some leeway.
Content creation.
So we can, our output would be much faster.
All right, that's
I
a
think
point
this will be
taken. We'll
another
pop.
Detailed session.
Yeah, we will.
I have a question on 3 to 1.
Huh.
So let's say you are teaching geography. There are some 10 key points. You throw this 3 to 1, I think. Because we are aiming to align the learning outcome in the assessment. So every child gets 3 points. On the whole, the class is done well. But then if you look at each individual student, maybe it can become some of I'm just doing a devil's advocate.
But the idea is that it's much better than assuming that all children know everything. It's still better, isn't it, for the teacher?
For the
Right
class as a
now,
whole,
yes, right now what the teacher does, if you don't ask, make use of any of these things, she'll just say, how many of you know, how many of you understood, what are the main features from what I taught you? 2, 3 hands will go up, only they will say, the others will keep quiet. How so? What happens? The entire class is
I
quiet then.
agree with you, sir. But there will be some bright students also who would like to gather the full stuff. So you think
To whom? To the bright students?
yeah, you'll have different category of students.
Yes. They feel happy that they're only going to write, Every child is going to write. It's not going to be a random spoken exercise. Every child would write 3 things that they know, 2 things that they have found interesting, and 1 that they want to know. So at the end of the day, it's going to be an individual exercise for each child. It's not like shouting in the class that they know 3 things. It's not that. That is not what is intended. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And I'll see you all maybe when we have the next hands-on session. Sai Ram. Whenever you're pricing.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Thank you, Akila, for passing out the toolkits that we'll be carrying around till we transfer it into a module.